Congressman Jason Chaffetz of Utah has been one of the leading congressional critics of the State Department's handling of the Libyan attack, and originally expected more resignations or people to be forced out a week or two ago, Congressman. And now we find out that not only that the 4 we thought were gone are not gone at all. Let me just tell the viewers what we know. Eric Boswell, he's the Assistant Secretary of State for Diplomatic Security. They said he'd resign. They said, no, he just shifted his desk. It's basically a desk change. And the 3 others, Charlene Lamb, Raymond Maxwell, and some other unidentified person, they've just been placed on administrative leave. They're not getting fired. They're coming back after a little leave. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, that's a vacation as far as I'm concerned. It looks like more of a reward and a bonus for a job. Look, we got 4 dead Americans. We got 3 people who were maimed and injured in that firefight. And no accountability. You had an internal review done by the Accountability Review Board. They found more than 24 systemic problems and challenges. They had 60 different recommendations. I mean, that place was an absolute mess and disaster, and we have 4 dead people and not one person held accountable. We haven't caught the terrorist that did this. In fact, the only person who is in jail is the person that created that video, which we know now had absolutely nothing to do with the attack.
What's your information, Congressman, on whether these folks, because initially the reporting was that they had resigned, and there was a lot of reporting on that before the Christmas break, that they had resigned, and now we find out that they haven't resigned, that they're all still getting paid by the taxpayer, they're all still at the State Department, 1 desk shift and a few others on administrative leave, and then they will resume their duties, including Charlene Lamb, the one who told your colleague, Congressman Issa, that the security was adequate on that day.
Well, but it starts at the top. When you hear the President of the United States say, well, it was just sloppiness. Well, you have dead people. You have hundreds of embassies and consulates, thousands of people serving overseas. You have this review board comes in and just over 60 days finds more than 24 systemic failures. I mean, I don't know, and then nobody's held accountable. Nobody's resigned. It's just like what we saw, quite frankly, in Fast and Furious. I mean, nobody was really held accountable in that situation as well. It just seems to be a pattern. And when the President of the United States says, well, it's just a little sloppy, you can see where that radiates down into the bowels of the organization, and nobody's held accountable.
Well, but, I mean, apparently these people were found guilty of inadequate performance, but not willful misconduct. Does that make a difference to you?
Well, when you have people that are dead as a result of your actions, you would think that there would be something dramatic that would change and move in this. And then to go out, see, what I have a problem with is the spokesperson from the State Department went out and led the world to believe that there were these 4 major changes. And they talked about how somebody had, resigned. She actually used the word resign, but they didn't. Again, they misled people into believing that they had made all these changes. All is well at the State Department, but that is simply not true.
Well, Boswell resigned his post as Assistant Secretary, but he's continuing his other duties at State. So it's basically just a title shift for this guy Boswell. And there's a question about whether that lives up to Hillary Clinton's statement that she takes responsibility for what happened in Benghazi. The buck stops with her. And the question is, do we expect this to be the end of it? I mean, do you think we're going to see more personnel accountability, or is this it?
Well, how the State Department holds itself accountable, I don't see it, because they did that independent review board, the accountability board, but they essentially blamed everybody, which means nobody was personally held accountable. I can't imagine all the deficiencies, all the recommendations, and not a single person is fired as a result of it. Not a single person resigns in just, hey, I didn't do my job. It's just absolutely amazing. And by the way, when the Accountability Review Board did its job, they didn't even interview Secretary Clinton. She's in charge of the department. They're supposed to go through, and they're looking at how these people got killed, and they didn't even talk to the secretary. It's unbelievable. They
seem to conclude that it didn't go up to her level. But the question is, you and I have spoken before about the cables that Ambassador Stevens sent, including on the day he died. I mean, they were begging for more security. They were very worried about the growing presence of Al-Qaeda, and the Accountability Review Board concluded that as well. I guess a lot of Americans will be left wondering, who was the person, do we go to this moment, who was the person who looked at those cables and said, no, you're not getting them? And what's happening to that person? Is that Charlene Lamb? Is she just going to get her administrative leave? Is that paid vacation? Is that what that is? Paid? Does she get pay?
Yeah, oh yeah, they're getting paid. I mean, that's what's just ridiculous about it. They spend weeks not having to come to work, go ahead and get paid. That sounds like a paid vacation to me. The problem I have is that on June 4th, we were bombed. There was a terrorist activity in Benghazi. We were bombed in April, but then we were bombed in June 4th. What happened then? How can that not rise to the level of the Secretary of State? How can that not rise to the level of the President of the United States? There were not changes then, and people were yelling, screaming, asking for more assets. You had terrorist activity going on there. Believe me, the Oversight Committee, Chairman Issa, myself, others, we will continue to pursue this. This thing is not done. We need to see the information. We expect to have additional hearings on this.
Okay.
The Foreign Affairs Committee is going to do this. We're still going on this.
Congressman Jason Chaffetz, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks, Megyn.